Welcome back to my stream. We actually have a little bit different of a stream today. That last week we played the Almost Gone. We played the whole game through. This week, what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a stream of an analysis of the story behind the game. Sorry. This game has been out for about 4 years, and I haven't really seen a lot of people figure out what the storyline of this game is. It's really not a direct story. It's based around just finding objects and kind of trying to put the pieces together. But even then, I have noticed in like community chats of like the discussion board or YouTube channels that some of the pieces like aren't being put together. I think how the developers intended, or some things just kind of seem like they don't belong there. Like I've seen discussions of the entire second act of this game. I've seen on like the discussion boards of people asking why this is even part of the game. And I just figured I wanted to do my own analysis of the storyline because I feel like I have a grasp of what it was, and I feel like I'll be able to answer a lot of questions that the community of this game has. And yeah, so that's what this stream will be today. I do see that I'm going to be having an ad come up in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to get started, and then once we're getting close to that ad, we will take a break and then come back. But while I'm doing this, I have the game actually set up in the different acts at different points. So we will be jumping through the game together, and I'll be showing what I'm talking about for this. I have a 12-page essay basically written of the storyline. So I'm going to go through the storyline. We're going to go through the game together, talk about it, and hopefully at the end of this, more people will have a better understanding of what the storyline of this game is, because it is really vague. But there's a lot of things in this game that are really interesting that I feel like go overlooked or weren't really connected to the rest of the game. So that being said, let's get started. So we start off the game in Emily's room. Emily is our main character. This story is about her life. Thank you so much, Rogue. I appreciate you. Hope you're having an awesome day. But this is about her life. This is about her family. And unfortunately, this is actually about her death. So Emily is our main character, and she has passed away. I don't believe she's realized that yet, but as we go through the game, I think that will kind of set into her mind that that has happened. But yeah, so this game is about how she died and why and what caused her death. So we're going to be talking about that. If that is a theme that you don't want to talk about, because there are some dark themes in this game, including child abuse, marital issues, just a warning now that that is going to be discussed. So at the start of the Almost Gone, we seem to be in an observer position with someone named Emily, who is our main character that I mentioned previously. We are observing Emily's life from the outside with her at various points in time, and we will discuss that as we go. We are currently in Act 1, and this is inside her house. And when you open the game, it's going to show Emily's room. It's going to say Act 1, a moment after. So whatever's going on in this game that we're trying to solve, which we talked about already, this is right after it happened. So the big event that we're discussing in this game just happened a moment ago. And when that pop-up comes up, Emily says, please let this be a dream. And so, like I said, I don't think it's clicked with her yet that she's actually dead and that we are going back through her life to figure out what happened. But she hasn't come to terms with that yet, and she says, please let this be a dream. She takes us through her family life, noting that she hopes this is actually a dream. We start off in her room, and we move through her house, but to start the game, we actually have to get out of her room, which is locked, and she doesn't understand why. We're given clues as to what exactly has been going on in her house as we go. It becomes very evident as we go along that Emily is very close to her dad. And we can see that in basically her entire room. She talks about that this is stuff her dad has put there. They go on camping trips together. We click on this. She talks about how her father gave it to her to get into architecture. This star globe he gave her, saying that her father gave it to her after she talked about liking stars and that he's really into astrology. So he gave her a bunch of stuff about astrology, including a telescope that is over here. We use this telescope actually. We see this treehouse that is going to be a focal point of this game, that we are trying to get to this treehouse that her father built for her. So we have that. She is very close to her dad. On the other hand, her mother, she does not seem to be very close to at all. As we go through this, we're going to see that Emily uses pretty cold language to describe her mother. She talks about how she just retreats into her office, how she's pretty distant, how she gets yelled at by her mom, how her and her mom and her dad aren't really like connected at all. Like their marriage isn't going very great. So even her dad and her mom are pretty distant now. So it just seems like it's Emily and her dad against the world, while her mom is kind of trying to hold them back from that. Like I said, we see that Emily and her dad are really close. They go camping together. Seems kind of a sort of escapism, because they do talk about how they go often and they go without her mom. Her mom doesn't like them to go. Her mom doesn't want them to go, and her mom doesn't want to go herself. So it's just her dad, while her mom's left at home, and they just kind of escape into the forest together. Yeah, so her and her dad just try to escape into the forest together, away from her mom. We can see that Emily's parents have been fighting. As we go through the house, actually, we can go down to the couch, and Emily will talk about that there was an impression on the couch. And she can tell it's from her dad sleeping there, but her parents don't say that. So for some reason, they're still trying to like hide the fact that they're having a bad marriage from Emily. But she's well aware that this is going on. So when we click on the couch, it still has the imprint of his head. She talks about how her mom would lay there during the day, and that kind of insinuates something we're going to talk about later on, that her mom has pretty bad depression. But then her dad sleeps here at night. So they're kind of alternating, like not even being in the same room together. She'll be here during the day. He'll be here during the night while she's upstairs sleeping. He'll be in his office during the day, and so on. We can even see that the marriage is going pretty bad, like I said. When we go into her mother's office, or her father's office actually, in the printer there is a divorce paper. And this divorce paper asking for full custody of Emily on her mom's side. And you can tell by reading this, Emily's pretty upset about that. She feels like she should have a choice. She doesn't want her mom to have full custody. She wants to go with her dad. So we're making pretty clear that it's Emily and her dad who are together, close, and her mom seems like this outsider who's trying to tear them apart. But something that we need to look closer into is what Emily is actually saying to us. Because it seems there's a little bit more of a sinister thing going on between her and her dad, and that possibly her dad is being a little manipulative and controlling, and Emily is kind of seeing him through a rose-colored lens that he has warped himself. And some of these things that we're going to discuss, we can actually go see right now. She discussed one thing is her camping backpack. And this, she says, we would go camping without her. She didn't want to come, he said. She would always protest, but we'd go anyway. So this is her dad saying that your mom doesn't want to come camping with us, but her mom saying, I don't want you going camping at all. I don't want you going camping with him. I don't want you going. But her dad is saying she doesn't want to go, so we're going to go instead. And that's already a manipulative thing of him. He's not wrong. She doesn't want to go, But he is turning it on her when her mom is saying, I don't want Emily going either. I don't want you going at all. I want you to stay at home. See this also with the star globe. If you noticed it earlier, so typical of my father, I say one thing about the stars, he fills my room with the zodiac stuff. Kind of showing that Emily does have an interest in like stars and astrology and zodiac signs, but her father was really like pushing it into her life and trying to get her interested in things that he's interested in as well. And so he starts filling her room with all these things that he's interested in, hoping that she will be interested in it too, to kind of get her closer to her, or to him. Also, I clicked on that poster above her bed, and it said my father put this up here so I would dream of becoming an architect one day. Her father is an architect. So again, this is another thing that he's putting into her life, trying to get her closer to him and get them connected together. Something I didn't click on in her room though was he filled her room with books. Like there's books on the shelves everywhere. And these books are kind of half-assed. She says they're empty and they look like a prop in a movie. And she mentions that her mother would never do that. Her mother would never put empty books on the shelf. She would fill them with things. And this just kind of shows that her dad is trying to like weed into her life and give her things that he thinks she wants and to draw her closer to him. But he's not actually really trying to get to know her or what she wants. Where on her mother's side, she would try. She would try to fill them with like words or like stories or something like that, where her dad is basically giving her props in a movie to try and set up her being closer to him. After hearing this from Emily, it's clear that her dad doesn't actually know any of her interests all that well and is trying to steer her in the direction of things he enjoyed, like architecture and astronomy. Her father also tells her that her mother doesn't want to go with them camping. It seems her mother didn't want Emily to go either. We can make some conclusions about Emily's mother as well, just by looking at the surface of the information we are given. For example, it is clear she's an alcoholic and she's severely depressed. So again, if we go into Emily's mother's office, once we're there, you can see that inside her safe, she has bottles of alcohol. On the bench in the window, there's a wine glass. And if we look inside her purse, she has a paper for a psychiatric hospital. And Emily says this is another clue that Emily's not really close to her mom, because she says, I knew she felt a bit down, but clinically depressed. Is that why she was taking so much medication? Emily knew her mother was taking medication, but she never really knew why. And she seems to never really cared to have figured out why. She just figures out now when she finds this paper and realizes her mother actually had depression, and that is why she was on medication, not just because she wanted to be on medication and have alcohol. So we know Emily's mother is an alcoholic. She's severely depressed. It's clear she was very distant to Emily and her father, would retreat to her office often, and just wanted to stay at home. When we entered Emily's mother's office for the first time, it did say this was her retreat. But if we look deeper into what is being told to us, we may see there some reasons into the behavior of Emily's mother. It's clear her marriage is falling apart. So obviously for anybody, that is going to be very hard and a difficult thing to get through. Her and her husband only ever fight. It is also clear that her husband has an odd relationship with her daughter. At one point, we find out that if Emily would be nearby, her mother would watch over her from her office, keeping an eye on her. So one of the things, if we click here, Emily says, while I'm eating in the dining room, she always sits here silently watching over me. And so if Emily's in the dining room by herself or anywhere like the living room, her mother is watching over her. And we can see that the mother's office is more open than the dad's. The dad is closed by two doors, where the mother has an open wall to the dining room and the living room. So it may seem like her mom is retreating, but her mom is actually really open and is trying to watch over Emily while her dad is hiding away. A lot of the time, insinuating that he's hiding something. At one point, we find out that if Emily would be nearby, her mother would be watching over from the office. This was probably as she wanted to make sure nothing would happen from her father's side. It's also evident that her husband wanted their daughter to be closer to him than her mother. We can get a glimpse of this actually from the dining room table. So when we go into the dining room, the only thing that we ever interact with here is that there's a bottle of pills on the table that is Emily's mother's. And nothing else is really interactive in here besides this bowl that says, empty, but at least I don't get hungry, even though I can't remember when I last had something to eat. Those are the only things that are interactable with this room. So it kind of makes this room feel like a side thought. Like it's not really important to the story, but it's actually really, really important if you look at it. So we know Emily's mother is an alcoholic and on pills. So because we found pills here and alcohol, we can assume that this setting was set up for Emily's mom. And you can also see that her plate is smashed on the floor, insinuating she has anger issues, things were going wrong. But if we actually look at this, we can also see the two settings next to each other that are neat and tidy, side by side. They have water together, and this would be set for Emily and her dad. And when we look at this and we think about it a little bit, we are seeing that Emily and her dad are pushing the mother out. So they are side to side next to each other, set up in unison, and they have her mother isolated on the other side of the table by herself. Her mom was very clearly going through something as well. But in Emily's eyes, she's blaming the mother, that she wants to be alone and on her own. But it's more the dad is pushing her out and to be on her own and to be on the other side of the table by herself while he has control of Emily. Further down the road, we can conclude that Emily's mother wasn't really as distant as she thought. Instead, her father was feeding her ideas about her mom and shaping her view of the situation, leading to her mother feeling helpless to keep her daughter from her husband, falling into depression, which she tried to remedy with pills and alcohol. It also seemed the only real thing she felt she could do to help was file for divorce with full custody, which we later realized was never going to be an option. So again, the mother is seeing this weird relationship happen between Emily and her dad, seeing that her husband is shaping the way Emily sees her mom, and her mom's feeling helpless, like her dad is controlling her daughter, tearing them apart, and her mom's plan is to get the divorce and file for full custody so she can get her daughter Emily out of this situation. Unfortunately, like I said, this story is about Emily's death. So this plan isn't going to work, and we will figure out why. We have two places left in the home that we haven't discussed. We haven't discussed the bathroom, and we haven't discussed the parents' bedroom. Both of these places are unique and mysterious in their own way. Starting with the bathroom, we only really have one short interaction with it. Upon leaving Emily's room, we are placed in a hallway that connects to her parents' room and the bathroom. If we interact with the bathroom, darkness starts to fill our vision, and black sludge begins to seep from the room. This is all cut off abruptly when the bathroom door slams shut again, and Emily says, "I am not going in there. No sane person would." Something really dark has happened in this bathroom, and it hasn't really told us what, but she is scared to go in there and she doesn't want to acknowledge it anymore after it happens. But she does say I'm not going in there, no sane person would. But basically the door swings open, the room turns to black, sludge is coming out of the bathroom, and then the door slams shut again, and then Emily is too scared to go back in there, and that will be important later on in the story. Her parents' bedroom has its own mysteries, though. When entering their room, you can find a second area with a wardrobe. So let's go in her room. From the hallway, we go straight into the parents' bedroom, and it has a second room with a wardrobe. This wardrobe, it's locked shut by a tree branch. This room ultimately seems useless besides a door handle that we can find, which is right here, that lets us get onto the patio to get a crowbar that lets us out of this area. It seems useless besides the door handle. However, something is more deeply wrong if we take a look at the map. And this is something that is really, really missed about this game. I see it in discussion boards a lot where people are like, what is the point of the wardrobe? It's locked. You can't open it. We're moving on. Nothing special about it. There's something really sinister about this area that we're going to talk about. And that is held within the map of this area. So if we open the map, all well and good. This little area right here is Emily's room. This is the hallway that we were in. It goes into the parents' room. This is the stairwell that we were in. The bathroom would be right here. Something here is wrong, because if we look how we got into this room, it was from here. We got in from the parents' bedroom. But if you look at the map, it's not aligned with the hallway, and that doesn't make sense. It is offset by 1 square, and we could write this off. The bathroom would be right here. Maybe it's connected. Later on, we will find out that's not true. The balcony is actually connected to the bathroom. I have been thinking about this part all week. I don't think you guys realize this. This is a really interesting part of the game that's really overlooked, and I have been so excited to talk about it. This is my favorite part of this. This map doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense because we, from this hallway right here, are transported into the bedroom. That doesn't make sense. You can't jump across the bathroom into the bedroom because the bathroom's here and that wall is shared by the patio. So what is going on here? This should be all pushed back 1 block. So this should be here, this should be here, this should be here. So what is going on with this? I have to reiterate, we talked about how Emily's father is very controlling. He's trying to push his way into his daughter's life and steal her from her mother. We also talked about her dad being an architect and how this is very important. Let's go back to the wardrobe room. This is another thing that we could write off as a design flaw in the game, but I don't believe it is, because later on in the game, we're going to have other wardrobes that we can look at that don't do this. We don't interact with them the same way. And this becomes very important along with the tree branches. So if we look at the wardrobe, it looks fine. Nothing's wrong with it. But if we start to turn, and if you can see it, it looks like behind this wall is a doorway, a hidden door that is covered by the wardrobe that is locked shut by this branch. Now, as we play this game, we are going to realize that these branches are connected to Emily. They are her mind. They're either showing her something or hiding something, and in this case, it is hiding something. So Emily's mind, at this moment, has locked this wardrobe shut. And because we're in Emily's perspective of what's going on, she also changed the map to make it make more sense to go along with this locked door. So the map is readjusted to hide something, and the branch is there to hide something, and that something is this doorway. And this doorway is important because if we shift this map down 1 like it's supposed to be, this room is supposed to be here, this room is supposed to be here, this room's supposed to be here. If we shift it down 1, this doorway leads to a secret spot that would be right here. And if you remember earlier, I told you this section is Emily's bedroom. So let's go back to her room. Keep that in mind. Having it shifted down, there would be a secret door to a different room that would look right into the mirror of Emily's bedroom. So now if we look back, if this was shifted correctly, that doorway would look right back into her room, that secret room. And that is very important to know, that Emily's father is an architect, he was controlling, and there's a secret room hidden in his parents' wardrobe that looks into hers. And for that is the end of the first act of this game. So, we just finished Act 1. We are now in Act 2, and when we start Act 2, again, we get that title screen of this is the image now instead of Emily's room. We get Act 2, the suburbs, an hour after. So now if you remember, the last one started with a moment after. So when everything happened, we were A few seconds or a few minutes after this event happened, we are now an hour after it had happened, and Emily says, like a rough version of my house. So this is Emily's home that we are looking at right now. Immediately leaving Emily's home, we see a tone shift in her word choice. She seems more negative towards everything, including herself and her father. I already got it, so you can't see it because I wanted to get through these areas as fast as we could. It's a puzzle game. It's hard to get through. I didn't want to spend a lot of time solving the puzzles, so I already did it. But when you get to this point, there's a bottle in the gutter we need to get down. And next to it is a hole with a hose ran through it. She makes the conclusion her father had made it in an attempt to get the bottle, and she talks about this being unnecessarily complicated. So before, when we were in the house, I didn't show you really, but when she talks about her father's work, she talks about how it was thought out perfectly and how the designs were perfect, and for some reason they were never brought to light. Like every time he made a design, they were shot down, and she didn't understand because she thought they were perfect and designed without flaws. But when we actually click on this hose, and I can't do it right now because I've already done it, when we click on this, she calls it unnecessarily complicated. And this is such a different tone that she uses with her dad than usual. She has now decided that her dad's work is too complicated. So we're starting to see a shift in her mood towards her father. Before, she felt sympathy for his work being rejected, even though it would be thought out perfectly. Now she sees something he's done as more complicated than it should be. Not much else can be said for their house other than that when you look at it head on, it looks like a normal house, but when you turn it around, it's only a shell, in which Emily comments fake again. It's like they assume nobody is going to take a closer look. This comment may have been more intended to be about their failing family life than she had realized. So again, if we think about that comment, looking at the house head on, this just looks like a home. This is a home. But when we take a look deeper inside, it's fake and it's for show. And Emily is commenting on her family life about that nothing was actually going how it should, and it was just for show. If we move to the backyard, we can find a picnic table, which I believe, I went everywhere but there, is right here. So we find the picnic table, there is police tape everywhere, and there is a note. Upon picking up the note, Emily says, "What is this?" "A witness report. I can't read the rest." Was Mom happy then? Was she happy being pregnant with me, or was she already so afraid of everything? This leaves us with some questions because we don't know what the witness report could be for yet. We haven't got there. In the second part of the yard, we can find a doghouse and a birdhouse. So let's go back to there. We have a doghouse, we have a birdhouse. Both of these occupants are clearly deceased. It might be a little hard to see on the stream, but at this point, we can make the conclusion that the black sludge means death. Something bad has happened. We have seen this sludge before in the bathroom, and we're seeing it now again in the doghouse. So this dog is clearly dead. If you can see it on the stream, you might not be able to. In the birdhouse, it's just bones. You can see the little feet of the bird, and it's just bone. Emily states that she didn't know they had a dog, possibly having it before she was even born, and that she wasn't sure why she was never told. To get out of the yard, we have to put bones on the doghouse. We need 2 halves of the bone for the doghouse for its plaque. The first one is inside the birdhouse. If we get the bottle off the roof, whoops, clicked on the wrong screen. If we get the bottle off the roof and we interact with it, it reveals this. I'll break open the birdhouse to reveal a skeleton bird. It looks off. This does not look right. This bird looks like it has boobies, okay? Something weird is going on with this bird. Someone clearly set it up like this. It's off because only half of the bone of the plaque is placed in with the skeleton, and the scene is set up to look like this. When we pick up the first half of the bone, it crumbles apart. Emily states that it doesn't look like it was broken, but that it was sawn in half, which is an interesting statement to make. After we find the second piece buried in the corner of the house, We can place both of these on the doghouse, and the back door burst open with a cold wind, moving us into the neighborhood. This neighborhood, ooh, don't do that. This neighborhood is a lot of information. This is a big... Stop doing that to me. You're scaring me. I will take that. Thank you. This is a big area. It is huge. It kind of resembles the shape of her house, but it's a big area. It's a lot to get through. There's a lot of people working in this area. And what this area is going to do is it's going to connect us to her dad. It might not seem that way. When I started this stream, I said in a lot of the discussion boards, I've seen a lot of people ask, what even is the point of Act 2 in this game? Because this information that we get here, it includes a lot of people and it's really vague, and none of it really seems like it's connected to Emily, besides the fact that she lives in this neighborhood. It was really hard to connect it together because no information was out there for it, and like everyone has said, it's really vague. It doesn't tell you how it's connected to Emily at all. So I had to sit down for a few hours and collect all the information that this area has given us, and I kind of just had to assume what it was telling me. So what I'm about to tell you is, sorry, my throat is dry. I've been talking a lot. What I'm about to tell you might not be correct. This is my assumption based on the information that it's given. This might not be the developer's intention at all, but this game has this act in there for a reason. And this reason that I'm about to give you made the most sense to me because it connects with everything else that we're given in the game. So, what I'm about to tell you might not be 100% correct, but it is my interpretation of what the developers meant. So take this with a grain of salt because I might have missed something, or I might have interpreted something different than they intended. Before we get started on that, the information that I feel is important for us to have to carry over into this scene is Emily's father may have been manipulative and secretive, and more secretive than we know. Emily's mother was filing a police report for some reason. The family had both a bird and a dog at some point in which both died, and someone clearly had messed with the bones of at least the bird in order to set up a scene with the bone plaque being included in it. This information is important as it shows something happened that clearly involved Emily's family, notably her dad, to the point that her mother was filing a police report. The neighborhood is a large scene. It has 4 houses, a house that is in the middle of being built, a street with 2 crashed police cars, and a toppled over gate with a padlock. As we go around the area and interact with the scene, we will find multiple figurines. We're going to find a pregnant woman. We just found the dog. I have it in my pocket. We have a police officer, a photographer, an architect, a graffiti guy, and a headstone. If we open the door, we find the dog figurine, which Emily notes she felt like this dog was the only one who was ever nice to her. I don't know if you caught that when I picked it up, but she says she felt this dog was the only one in this neighborhood that actually liked her. The tree has a heart carved into it. Let me show you that. If we remember, trees and branches in odd places typically hint to something to do with Emily. The heart being carved into it tells us that this may be about her family. Emily also says that this heart is about her parents when she says, would they still be together, or more importantly, would they still be happily together? On the ground near the tree, we find a briefcase. In it is a laser pointer and an empty slot that clearly was for a gun. We can place this laser pointer into the middle of the heart in the tree, and it will lead us to find more than many of the other figurines. So like I said, on the ground, there's a briefcase, very clearly missing a gun. We get the laser pointer, and we can put that in the tree, and it's gonna lead us around. I'm not gonna follow this per se at the moment, but in the game, if you do follow this, it will show you where a bunch of different figurines are. We found the dog in the police car. We found the pregnant woman in the gutter next to a turned over pram. We found the graffiti guy underneath a skateboard. We found the headstone in a doghouse. The police officer is underneath a burning car. Next to that, we find the photographer. And then the final figurine we find is the architect hidden inside a wall of a building that is being built. So we can place these figurines in their respective houses. And we are going to go ahead and go to house 1. The headstone is for house 1. When we enter the area, Emily notes that she remembers when their son died, hinting that the headstone is for the boy of this house. If we look around, we can actually see a broken bike lays at the side of the house, and inside a crack of one of the walls, we can see graffiti done in which Emily describes, you can't see it because my picture is covering it, Emily describes it as a memorial. When we place the figurine on top of this house, we are going to get a little postcard congratulating us for a diorama where we won first prize. We're going to move on to house 2. This house we have the architect and photographer. If you look inside, she notes this looks like designs her dad does for the architect, and that pictures are being done and developed at the top of the house. Emily isn't sure why her dad didn't tell her there was another architect living in the area, notably right across the street from them. If you look where we came from, going out this way is going to be the tree that we talked about, and over here is where we came from, which is where Emily's house is. So this architect is living right across the street from them. When we put the architect and photographer here, we are going to get a home life magazine. She isn't sure why her dad didn't tell her about the architect, because surely he had known. Inside the house upstairs, there are many photographs in the process of being developed, which will come into play later in this theory. At house 3, we can look inside. We have the doghouse because that is where we found the headstone for the boy. We can see the police lights going off, so we know this is the policeman's house. We also have a baby crib, so we know that this is for the pregnant woman. So we are going to place those 3 at the top. And again, a lot of people aren't sure why this area is even needed. It is important to the story. We'll get into that. It's important why all these people live at the places that they do and how they're all connected. The last one that we have is the graffiti guy. And he lives in this house over here alone by himself. It has a bunch of black sludge. It has graffiti everywhere. When we put him on top of his mailbox, we actually get a postcard from his jail that he was in, insinuating at some point he's been in jail, and that is important. Each of these homes offer us another piece of information when placing the figurines on the mailboxes. Like I said, house 1 got the congratulatory letter, house 2 has the architecture magazine, house 3 has a magazine for baby toys, and house 4 has a parse code from what Emily states as their old jail. Each of these pieces of mail have a number on it, and later that's going to be used to unlock the gate that lets us into the next area. With all this information we have gathered and spending a lot of time trying to piece it together, what we already know, I landed on this following theory. And now this is the important part of this entire speech of why we've done all of this, because this is what I actually think happened, is I think Emily's father killed the boy from house 1. Emily's father was a failing architect. He felt anger and frustration at the fact that another architect was not only living in their neighborhood, but designing houses that would be in their area forever. Like I said, Emily talked about how she thought her dad's designs were perfect, but they kept being shot down for some reason. And when we entered this area, we see a change in Emily's view, saying that his design was actually overly complicated. So we can assume that her dad wasn't doing great at his job as an architect, and now an architect has moved in across the street from us and is building houses in our area. Emily's father is a very controlling and manipulative person, and I can imagine that this was awfully frustrating and anger-inducing for him to experience this happening. That somebody else who's better at him in his career has moved in, and now their homes are going to be in the area. He's going to have to look at them forever. Being someone with control issues and a possible tendency to hurt small animals, like I said, they had a dog and a bird. Both of them have died, and someone clearly messed with the bones in the birdhouse. Emily's father took his rage out on the boy from house 1 after seeing him out on his bike one night. If we go back to the house that is being built, let's go back there. I think it's here. If we go back to the house being built, we can see at the bottom is a pool of black sludge. Like I said before, we can make the assumption that black sludge means something bad has happened or something has died. We can conclude that Emily's father took the boy there and killed him over his anger for the house being built. So what about the rest of the neighborhood? Because that seems kind of straightforward. We kind of connected the architect and the boy from house 1, but we have so many other people in this neighborhood that seem not connected to this at all. Well, as we explore around, we can make the conclusion that the boy from house 1 and graffiti guy were probably friends. If we go back to this bench next to the tree, we can actually see a piece of graffiti, and she says, "At night I would hear the rattling of their canisters," insinuating this wasn't just Graffiti Boy. Somebody else was out here. It wasn't him by himself. We also found the graffiti inside the house 1 that was created by the graffiti guy as a memorial for the dead boy. All of this is important because if we explore around the house being built, we can find graffiti tag and spray painted walls. So let's go back again. This information is important because there was graffiti at this house that's being built. We can find the tag of graffiti guy right here. You can't see it very well. It doesn't let you click on it. But you can see it, and it is very clearly his tag. The other piece of graffiti that's very interesting and is a little bit cryptic is this one that says, "Destroy all, save everyone," and it's spelled wrong. The tag is important because it leads to the conclusion that the police thought that the graffiti guy had killed the boy. His tag was found at the crime scene, and he was known to hang around the boy often. We can also make the guess that the graffiti guy was arrested for this crime, since we can find a postcard from him to his house after being put in prison. So the postcard is from himself in prison, and if you play through this game, it actually gives you a different dialogue option that I haven't been able to get again, where we see it's from himself because he's asking a friend to take care of his little brother. And it'll say that on the postcard sometimes through the playthrough. I've gotten it like once. I don't know how to get it again, but it will say that he wants his friend to take care of his little brother, insinuating that this postcard is from himself, and it has now arrived at his house. If we think about the black ooze pooling at the top of his house, so let's go back to the black ooze, because this, again, it means death or something bad has happened. He has it pulling from his front door, and he has it in the top of his house. So if we go back and we think about what's going on here, the graffiti guy either ended his own life, or our father, Emily's father, might have ended it for him once he got out of prison. If we look up here, Emily will actually say, "Does that say RIP? It's written so badly I can't read it." So this might have just been his last note after ending his own life, after what happened, being put in prison for his own friend's death, being blamed for it. What about the other graffiti? "Destroy all, save everyone." That's kind of out of note for him. If we look at all the graffiti that he does, it's very much just like his tag. It's just his tag everywhere, except for inside of the little boy's house where he made a memorial for him. So what about the graffiti that says "Destroy all, save everyone"? Well, if we believe that Emily's dad killed the boy at this not yet finished house, it might be safe to say that her father spray painted that saying hinting at his mental state at the time. He wanted to destroy the home because he thought it was evil and bad, and he believes he's now saved everyone from its evil and badness. And we could probably guess that he thought Graffiti Guy wasn't a great guy. He was tagging everything. So Graffiti Guy being blamed for this was probably, again, his viewpoint of saving everyone. Like, he's destroying our neighborhood and this architect is destroying their neighborhood. I have stopped both by killing this boy and getting the building production stopped and getting Graffiti Boy put in prison. He also, obviously, he probably did that in spray paint to put the blame on Graffiti Guy anyways. I am sure Emily's dad didn't want to be framed for, not framed, but like blamed for this crime. So he probably framed Graffiti Boy by spray painting it and kind of leading the police to him instead. A neighboring police officer seemed to be one who was investigating the crime. When we find his figurine, his police car is at the end of a road turned over. So let's go there. We are at the end of a road. His car is turned over. Next to it is a small puddle of black sludge. Again, this means something bad happened or somebody died. We found the figurine in the black sludge with a large fire burning over it. We didn't see that here because I already gotten this figurine. We saw it at the beginning. We put out the fire to get the figurine, but it was burning. If Emily's father was aware of the officer conducting the investigation into a crime he committed, because I believe this officer continued investigating afterwards. I don't think he believed Graffiti Guy did it. The officer knew something else was going on. It's not a far stretch to think that he used gasoline to set the cop's car on fire, ultimately killing the cop. If this is true, this is important later, and I say gasoline for a specific reason that we will see later on. The cop's death was chalked up to a freak accident, and in severe grief, his wife lost the baby, leading to an empty crib and unused diapers. If we go back to the police officer's home, and we look at the crib, Emily actually tells us, this crib is for a newborn, but I don't see diapers anywhere. Maybe there's one on the way. And there was one on the way, but it never came because I believe that she lost the baby in grief. His police dog, the dog that we found in the cop car, they have a doghouse. After he died, it was transferred to a new officer, which was the one outside Emily's home. Now we have the photographer. Not a lot of information is known about her. The only thing Emily says is that when we found her, it looks like she was taking pictures of the scene with the burning cop car. Not having a lot of information about her other than what Emily says, and that it seems her and the architect's home was positioned right across the street from Emily's, it might be possible that the photographer was trying to document the deaths that were happening in their neighborhood, trying to figure out what was going on. Final information we have is of the police dog. Not much is said about this either, other than we know it was the only thing that Emily thought was nice to her, and it was found in a police car. It was held up by a tree outside of Emily's home, and again, that is important because Emily, her mind puts trees in odd places to give us hints at things. We can guess this car was at her home to investigate what was going on with her and her father. This is a sad realization as the dog is now investigating her own death. The dog that was the only thing nice to her is now investigating or helping to investigate why she died. So to cover everything that just happened here, it was a lot. It was a lot. So an architect moved in, was building houses in the area. Emily's dad was a failed architect and he's not a good person. So we can assume, he'd been abusing small animals. He set up a weird situation of their bird with a dog bone in it in their backyard. So to get back at the architect and try to stop production, he killed a small boy in that area and he succeeded in stopping the production, and that house never got built because of that situation. Graffiti Boy, who was friends with this young boy, got arrested for the crime. And now Graffiti Boy, once he was released, he was either silenced by Emily's dad killing him because he didn't want the information getting out that he actually killed the boy, not Graffiti Boy, or Graffiti Boy tragically ended his own life out of grief for losing his friend and then being blamed for the brutal crime. The policeman who lived in the neighborhood didn't believe that Graffiti Boy did it and continued investigating this crime. When Emily's dad found that out, obviously he didn't want to be figured out that he killed the boy. So he set the police car on fire, and it was chalked up to an accident how the cop died. Because of that situation, his wife miscarried, and obviously because he died, that dog got transferred to a new cop. The photographer, however, was still documenting what was going on, and she might actually be a key part in why Emily's mother ended up filing a police report, because she might have documented evidence. So then we have the police dog left. The police dog, Emily says over and over again, this is the only thing that was nice to her, and tragically the police dog, being her only friend, is helping investigate investigate her death. So that is Act 2. We can make the conclusion that Emily's dad did it. He's very manipulative, he's controlling, he's keeping her away from her mother and trying to get her closer to him. It's caused depression and alcoholism in her mother, and she's become very cold to her mother and gotten closer to her dad, which is what he wanted. Her dad needs control of situations, didn't love the architect making homes in his area. He was supposed to be a good architect, but he was awful. So he tries to get back at her by killing a small boy. So we can see that Emily's dad is capable of some pretty awful things. Awful things. And now we are at the apartments. This is Act 3. Again, we're going to have an opening screen, and it's going to be... Actually, we just get transported into the basement of this area. We'll get into that, but when we get to the actual opening screen of this area, it says Act 3, the apartments, 30 years before. So this is 30 years prior, and this is going to be about her dad's childhood and how he was as a kid. She says the air feels heavier, as if I'm getting deeper underground. We are in the apartment. Like I said, we experienced time in this area completely different than anywhere else in this game. This area, we actually jump back and forth between present time and her dad's childhood. We are going through his childhood. We do start off in the basement. Like I said, I don't have that up. It's a very small area. It is slightly essential to something I said earlier, and I will just describe it for you because I don't have it to show you. So we start off in the basement where the power has gone out. While hunting around to get the lights turned back on, we find a room. This room has a chair facing a freshly painted wall and a cabinet that is locked. And this is essential to know that this is in present time as Emily is viewing it. If we interact with the chair, we are transported to the past, so 30 years prior. The door behind us is now locked, and the wall is no longer freshly painted. Where the paint was is now a gruesome drawing created by a child, showing images with eyes crossed out and what looks vaguely similar to our treehouse. In a washing machine, we can find a set of keys, and on top of the other machine is a lighter with some cigarettes that Emily recognizes as her grandfather's. So we can assume that this is where her dad was in. The door was locked. He was trapped in here all the time. He was drawing gruesome drawings on the wall. We come back to present day. We unlock the door and we find a gasoline canister that is notably half empty. So, we're coming back to her dad's adult life, present day, kind of. We don't know when all of this stuff really happened, if it was all close together, but we find a half-empty gasoline canister. And if you remember in Act 2, I told you that I believed he set the cop's car on fire using gasoline because he didn't want the cop figuring out it was actually him who killed the boy. And I believe this gas canister is what he used to kill that cop. It is very important to note that we are going to see that it does seem her dad keeps coming back to the apartment buildings present day. So he has been back here, back and forth a lot throughout his life. So we're going to see a lot of things in present day showing signs that he has come back here recently. And we're actually going to talk about a situation that's going on in the top floor to confirm that. We use the gasoline and the lighter on the machine that is downstairs to get the power back on, and we are able to move upstairs into the apartments. We start off on the main floor. You can see a mailbox. Mailbox number 3 is clearly full, and Emily states they need to pick up their mail. We can move into the elevator, and it takes us up to the grandparents' apartment, which is the second floor. In the entry is standing a scale model of the treehouse, which we have right here. Please note that you don't see this when you start the game. This is the end of this level. I had it completed so we can easily move to the next part of this apartment building. So this is gonna look different when you play the game. But we can find a scale model of the treehouse. Emily finds this peculiar because her father always told her that the treehouse was for her. And that doesn't make sense because it's here. It's here. When he was a kid, he drew the treehouse on the wall in the basement. He has a scale model of it in his parents' apartment. But he's always told Emily that he's been making this treehouse for her. And so she doesn't understand why he would say that when clearly he's been thinking of this treehouse for a really long time. If we open his wardrobe, we're gonna go, oh, we can't, because I already completed it. But if we go into his room, I am so sorry I can't show you this because it's really essential to the story. A third door, this door right here, leads us into the room Emily says she was always allowed to stay in when visiting. And on the bed, there's going to be a teddy bear, which takes us back in time again. Going back in time, the room is notably messier. It has clutter everywhere and children's drawings on the walls, again, one of which is of a treehouse. And again, Emily is like, why is this treehouse here? He said this was for me. Why was he drawing it as a child 30 years ago? If we open his wardrobe, we are met with a scene of a bird skull hanging from a string. Tally marks are carved into the wardrobe walls, and bird bones are on the base of the floor of the wardrobe. If we explore his room more, we can find clues to unlock a puzzle box on his bed, giving us a child's drawing of a map with an X in the corner of his room. If we interact with the spot back in present time, it reveals a hole in his floor with more bones and a key with a bird skull on it. So, in his room, we go back in time. It is a complete mess. This is his room when he was a kid. He has horrible drawings on the wall again. He has a drawing of the treehouse on his wall again. He has in his closet a deconstructed bird. Basically, its bones are everywhere. He has tally marks scratched into the wall of the wardrobe, and this bird's skull is hanging from a string from a bar. So that is worrying. Yes, you are correct, Friendsby. It is worrying. That is typically, Jesus. You know, those are things that people say are behaviors of future serial killers when they're torturing small animals, playing with their bones, setting them up in weird ways, doing weird things with them. So that is a little bit hint of the thought process of Emily's dad. And we have to keep that in mind because we've already seen things where he's controlling, he's hurting animals, he possibly killed another child. We have to keep these in mind that he was exhibiting these behaviors as a young boy as well. You go into this door over here. That's what the key unlocks. It gives us access to the rest of the apartment and access to more information about Emily's dad's childhood. It becomes very evident that he was a troubled kid. As we look around for pieces to fit into the treehouse model, in the bathroom, you go in the bathroom, you know, one of the pieces is frozen in the bathtub. When we turn the hot water on and it unfreezes, steam covers the mirror and it reveals a drawing of a man hanging that Emily's dad drew as a kid. If we go into the kitchen area, we can click on a corkboard that just says there's a list of a lot of doctors and a lot of hospitals on there. Seemingly meaning that his parents were trying to find him help. They knew he was doing these weird things as a kid, and they were trying to find him help, and it seemed like none of it was working. When we click on the fridge to get the other piece of the diorama, Emily says, these are all containers of frozen food with my dad's name on it and days of the week. And then she says, is this what they were feeding you when you were locked in the basement? So it seems that they were trying to get him help and they just couldn't. They couldn't find help for him at all. So he was being aggressive, doing these weird things. They would just lock him in the basement for days at a time, and they would just feed him frozen meals that they had prepared in the freezer, trying to keep him under control, trying to keep his anger under control. When we go into the living room to find the final piece, there's a stain on the couch. And when we click on this stain, it transports us back in time. And back in time, the living room is a complete mess. The couch is broken. There's a drawing of a dead body on the floor that her dad put there with its head on the couch. We open up the chest cavity of that drawing. We get the other diorama piece. But Emily states, "Is this what was going through your mind, Dad? You need help." And that's basically like we've got those pieces. We're seeing that her dad is really aggressive. He's having really bad thoughts. And then we go into the next room to find the final piece. On the bookshelf, we actually find out that his dad, our grandfather, Emily's grandfather, had been cheating this whole time too. We open a book. He has letters from other women. He's sending letters to other women. And Emily's dad knew about it. And I assume had a grudge about that we'll get into later. Another thing I didn't mention is it seems Emily's grandpa was going through a lot himself, because he was also an architect and he had designed a building where there was a newspaper clipping on the table discussing this building collapsing and killing 9 people. So what we know from this information is Emily's dad, he was troubled as a little kid. He was insanely troubled. He had horrible thoughts. He was aggressive. His parents were trying to get him help, but they just couldn't find it. So they resulted in just locking him in the basement for long periods of time, giving him frozen food. But his parents were also going through the fact that his father designed a building that ended up killing 9 people. And his father was going through horrible things at this time and was probably pushing Emily's dad to the side and not giving them the help or the attention that he needed during that time. And it caused the aggression to get worse. But once we do put all these pieces together, it actually opens a room that previously we didn't have access to. We find a diorama of the building that ended up killing 9 people, and when we interact with it, we got a wire off of it and it collapsed, showing us how the building was destroyed. In the people's defense of who died, this building was held together by like 2 strings, and that doesn't seem reasonable to me, so I don't know why he thought it was good design, but it seems bad architecture designs runs in the family, so I don't really know what's going on there. They should probably stop trying to be architects, but what do I know? So that was the apartment, and there is a second area to this apartment. We are gonna go upstairs. So, when we leave the grandparents' apartment, we move to the next floor in the building. In the main area, we can find a broken chairlift that Emily states looks like it was tampered with. If we go up into this area using the string, this is about to be a loud noise, just warning. We go into another apartment. This is a really sad area, and the music shift is insane. I don't know if you can hear that. Trash bags everywhere. There's frozen meals. There's cigarettes. It's just litter everywhere. If we go into this room over here, we will find a bookshelf that is filled with our grandfather's books. And next to it, there is a desk with apology letters that Emily says he had never sent to his victims. So he had been up here. This is her grandfather's room. For some reason, we're about to get into that, he had been up here. He had been writing letters to his victims. He never sent them. In another area, we can find his hospital bed. This is what we're going to get into. He lived the rest of his life up here. He was in hospice. He lived the rest of his life up here. Her dad was taking care of his dad in the end of his life. He was stuck up here. He put a hospital bed and just kind of left him here. He'd bring him frozen meals. We can tell he clearly didn't care about his father's well-being, because he's bringing him frozen meals. He's leaving the trash everywhere. He's not picking up. He's not actually taking care of his dad. And when we think about this scenario, we can relate this back to him being locked in the basement in his childhood. This is obviously revenge for what his father had done to him. He's locked his dad up here. He tampered with the chairlift, so he can't get back out. He's stuck up here for the rest of his life. And his dad, in that revenge, he's just feeding him frozen meals like he did when he was in the basement. He's trapped in here like he was in the basement. And he's just making his dad live through what he had to live through as a child. And it's very clear revenge on what he went through. Another sad part of this area that we're about to get into, though, is this next room. And this part is kind of a tragedy, because we discussed how his parents had been trying to find him help for his aggression and his horrible mindset, but they just couldn't find it, and they were locking him in the basement, trying to find doctors, trying to find hospitals to take him to. And like I said, his dad went through a tragedy that very clearly made it seem like his dad pushed him to the side and was just like pushing him off, trying to go through his own thing. But what was actually happening is, if we open this, we can see his dad this entire time had been designing a hospital that one day hopefully was going to cure his own child of the ill will that he was going through. Her grandfather built this entire hospital for her dad, and her dad never got there because her grandfather never actually finished it. The project was handed off to somebody else that we're about to get into. But we can see that his dad cared this whole time. He was still trying to find him help. He was building an entire hospital to get his kid help, but he never achieved that. So that is the end of Act 3. Why does the psych ward look like a church? I honestly don't know, because it really does look like a church, and it feels like a church on the inside. So I don't know if that insinuates that maybe her grandparents were very religious people, and the help that they were trying to get him was maybe a religious nature. It doesn't really state anywhere in this game about religion or anything like that, but I mean, we do see crosses and stuff on a lot of the grandparents' design. It was on the front of the apartment building too, which he designed. So it's possible that maybe they were very religious people, and the help that they were trying to get him wasn't working because maybe it was religion-based. But yeah, religion is not mentioned in this game, but you are right, it does very much resemble a church. So we can maybe guess that his parents were religious and the help that they were seeking out wasn't the help he needed. Let us begin Act 4. This is the hospital. When we open this area, if you saw it, Emily says this is 1 year after. So we've had moments before, we've had an hour after, we've had 30 years before, and this is 1 year after. So the big event that we are talking about, that is Emily's death. We had a moment after it happened. We had an hour after it happened. We had 30 years before it happened. And now we are 1 year after it happened. So her death was a long time coming. It was a long time coming. 30 years. Her dad was going through horrible mindsets. At this point, we can make the assumption her dad killed her. We are going to get into that in the next part after this. But right now we're at the hospital. And this part, it's actually going to be about her mother. So this part is very interesting. And again, it kind of seems like it's off and kind of not related to the rest of the story, but we're going to see a change in Emily's mindset towards her mom, and that is very important. At the end of Act 3, we're transported to the hospital, which Emily's grandfather built. We can find a bust of his head. He built this hospital. We actually see over here a broken bust of a former founder. Assuming that her father or grandfather never really helped end this project because he died, so that's why his son never was admitted to this hospital. I don't think he could be admitted anyways, because by the time it was built, he was an adult, so it didn't really matter. They couldn't get him the help anyways. They can't force him into this hospital after he's already an adult. So this was handed off to some other owner and founder after a while. And if we look inside of this, it's actually connected to a wire that we are going to switch on, and it actually turns on a TV that's down the hallway. We are going to go look at that, and that is this TV. I can show you right there. Can you see it? Kind of. This is Emily's home. We show a scene. There's just black sludge everywhere outside of her house. And we switch over to black sludge inside the bathroom as well. And it's just everywhere. This is her home being broadcast on TV. Something very bad has clearly happened in her home that we will get to. We have this main area, and it is connected by pipes all around this. So let's take a quick tour. We could see pipes everywhere. We have different structures going on. We have an organ that is very useful to connecting the pipes together. We have a little TV screen. We have this broken wall that we will talk about. We have a covered statue. We're back to the main area. The center of everything is a room specifically dedicated to therapy for the patients. And that was this very haunting, eerie mini church inside of this area. In the room, we do find paperwork about Emily's mother, to which Emily states there was so many pills. Did they help you, Mom? Did they bring you some peace and balance at least? And connected to this was a little slide. And we're going to need 4 of those to get through this area. So clearly her mom is going through therapy inside this weird, creepy little church area. So her mom has been admitted to this hospital a year after she died, after Emily died. Her mom's getting psychiatric help. She's on a lot of pills, a lot of antidepressants, trying to get over the death of her daughter. The hospital is where we see a significant shift in Emily's view towards her mother. When previously she felt like her mother was cold and distant, she now feels a lot closer with her mom. She starts to feel empathy for her mother's situation and even states at one point that she feels like her and her mother were both victims. We're tasked with finding 4 slides for a projector to get out of the hospital, one of which was attached to Emily's mother's paperwork. Using the pipes along the ceiling in the area, we work our way around to find the other slides. There's a moment in here where Emily states her and her mom were both victims. She starts really feeling for her mother and feeling really connected to her in this area. And we start seeing her feel a little bit closer to her mom and not even mention her dad at all. So we can see the shift in mindset that at the beginning, Emily was really close to her dad. She had rose-colored glasses on to his control. The next act, she immediately switches and she's like, his work was overcomplicated. That's the only thing she says about her dad, and it's kind of in a negative tone. She sees her dad's life, and she's like, you needed help. You needed a lot of help. And now she's seeing the end of her mom's life and is sympathizing with her and feeling connected to her because they were both victims. Though not much is really said about the main areas of this chamber, 2 places are significant to Emily and her mother's story. The first area being the MRI machine. We are going to go over to that. We're going to go inside the machine. And when we interact with this over here, Emily comments, are these my brain scans or are they my mom's? Does it show our trauma? So in this moment, she's acknowledging that her and her mom have a shared trauma, and she can't actually tell if this is her mom's scan or her own because they share this trauma together and it's something they're both going through. The next significant area is behind a boarded up wall. So this wall's already broken down because I had to do it to get the slides, but at this wall, when it was boarded up, it actually had writing on it that said, I'm sorry, Emily, I was trying to protect. This wall can be broken down using the system of pipes on the ceiling, and behind it reveals floors of patients' rooms. So Emily's mom, she was like, I was trying to protect you. And like I said before, we knew that the mom knew what the dad was trying to do to Emily. And this whole time she was trying to protect you. She was trying to get a court order to get a divorce and get full custody of Emily. And it just didn't work because unfortunately Emily died before that even happened. And her mom is feeling that. And she's feeling like she's guilty because she was trying to protect her and she couldn't. When we go in here, we actually figure out Emily's mother's room is 510, and we will make our way there in a moment. When we enter her room, we can see that her mother has a bunch of Emily's drawings scattered around. Not only is Emily now realizing that her mother has always cared for her, but that her own passing was very recent. And we are going to look at that, actually. I don't think we're going to be able to make it back into her room, but we can see her room from here. So on the wall, it's Emily's drawings everywhere. And Emily notes that those drawings she made were recent. Those aren't like her childhood drawings that her mother kept. Those are drawings that she made recently before she died. And her mom has kept them this whole time, showing that they meant something to her mom and that her mom was caring this whole time and not actually cold and distant like her father had been telling her. On the floor, you can see black sludge. Again, we have the black sludge hidden behind a curtain with a spilled bottle of pills. Again, black sludge means something bad happened or somebody died. It has only been a year after Emily passed away, and now we're seeing that it's possible her mother has passed too in a self-inflicting death. So Emily's mother, we get this information from her. She was carrying this whole time. She tried to get her away from her dad. It just didn't work. Emily, unfortunately, was killed by her father due to that, and her mother just couldn't handle the grief a year after. Once all the slides are collected, we return to the therapy room and we can place them inside the projector. And we are going to go do that right now. And when we do this, it actually breaks open a wall to let us leave. So let's slap these bad boys in here. Oh, that's not one. Sorry. It's going to break open this wall. Disgusting. But wonderful. This whole building is about to collapse. Great job, Grandpa. Again, another note that her grandparents and her dad, not great architects, really bad. So when we go in here, when the screen melts away, we go into, it's kind of a sewer area. And Emily notes that there's bodies in here and they're just kind of dumped and not taken care of. So that kind of insinuates the kind of care that's happening in this hospital, that it wasn't a great hospital and the patients weren't really cared for or getting help. So really, if her dad wasn't here, it probably wouldn't have changed anything. And we can also note the irony that this area was built for her dad to get help, but ended up being for her mom after her dad, who needed help, kills her child. Which is awful. She ends up in this hospital that was built for her husband because he has awful psychopathic behavior, and she's the one who ends up in it instead. We're gonna go into this room, and it's gonna open up to a morgue. And in this morgue, we do actually find Emily's mother. And Emily states, no, Mom, when did this happen? Where are you? Where is everyone? And then she says, wait, this isn't right. This never happened or hasn't happened yet. So Emily is seeing into the future after her death. Like I said, that area was 1 year after she had died. She's seeing that her mother ended up dying and passing away from the grief of Emily's passing as well. And she's confused because that wasn't supposed to happen yet. Her mother wasn't supposed to die yet, but she doesn't understand. And now she's coming to the understanding that she has been dead this whole time. Years have passed. Her mother has passed. Her grandparents have passed. Everyone has passed away. And we are now in the area of Emily's final resting place. This is Act 5. This is the forest. And it says a few minutes before. So this is a few minutes before Emily herself dies. And she says, I hope this river leads me to the end of this place. Act 5 is, it's very short. It's going to be a very quick area that we get through. We're going to follow this boat down a river, and Emily is going to give us some more commentary about her parents and her life. So let's get into that. We're going to follow this down. In this area with the dock, Emily says, this place feels familiar and safe. I think this is where I need to be. We're going to move on. And it says, when passing this campsite, she says, this is where I would go camping with my dad, together by the fire, looking at the stars. And we're going to move on. We're going to pass by a bookstore. And in this, Emily says, my mom wouldn't stop buying me books. She wanted me to stay home, close to her, and escape into other worlds, not go to the woods. So in this area, she's stating that her mom, again, she never wanted Emily to go on these camping trips. She wanted her to stay at home with her, in her protection, not with her dad. So she'd buy her books and hope that she'd just escape into other worlds in their own home and not outside with her father. I said, Emily's mother's trying to keep her at home. She wants her to be safe at home, not out with her dad. This is a big shift in Emily's view of her parents. We're going to go into another final area before we get to our final resting place. And this area, it's a chalkboard. It has desks like a school. And Emily says, he always wanted to know everything about my classmates, what secrets they told me. And this is a really cryptid comment because we haven't talked about anything outside of Emily's family life. So I don't know if this is hinting at her dad was, we know he killed another child before, or we assume at least. We know he killed Emily. So was he also trying to learn about her classmates and go after them too? Was he maybe asking them what secrets they told him because, he did kill that other kid and he was trying to like weed out if other people knew it was him and like her classmates were whispering about it. He was trying to keep that under control and under secrecy. So this might be a hint at the fact that he was still trying to keep that secret, and he was willing to take out anybody, even other kids, if it meant that he wouldn't be caught for that crime. And then we are going to go to our final place, which is the infamous treehouse. Arrive at the treehouse, and Emily is going to say, I am here at the center of this small universe, and I understand. So she's finally realized everything that's happened. You know, this game has been really vague about everything, so we've had to work hard to piece this together, and we're seeing it through Emily's eyes. She told us, you know, she was really close to her dad. She wasn't close to her mom, and that's how she saw it, but then she realized her dad was a really bad person, and her mom was just trying to protect her, but her mom wasn't able to, and her dad took advantage of that. Now we are at this final resting place that he built for his daughter. We're gonna go inside this area, and again, this is gonna be really short, guys. We have like 2 paragraphs left about this. So as you can see, the darkness has started to move inwards around us. The last time we saw this, we've seen it a couple times, but most notably we saw this in the bathroom at her house, where this darkness moved in, and this darkness is her father. After this journey, we finally enter the treehouse, and the first area is the entryway, and Emily notes her camping bag is already here. She is already here. Her father has taken her camping and brought her here. There's a map with their camping spots marked on the wall. These are all the places that they've gone. It's a map of everything. Every place that they've gone. So he has been preparing this place for her for a while. He has decorations in here. He has a map of their camping points that he's been plotting out for a long time. I didn't mention it in Act 1, but if we actually looked at a diagram of the treehouse, Emily noted that she never knew her dad finished it, and she didn't know why he didn't tell her. So he finished this treehouse a long time ago and never told her, and now he has finally brought her here, and this is her final resting place. We can move over, and we are going to look at a telescope. This is a replica of the telescope that he gave her. Remember that he was trying to force her into things that he enjoyed to get her closer to him. And one of those things was astrology. And something really creepy happens when we look through the telescope here. It looks straight into her bedroom. And this is just another sign her dad, he was spying on her. Like I said in Act 1, we know there was a secret room behind her bedroom that he could look through a 2-way mirror into her room. He was watching her all the time. And now he's built this treehouse and he's watching her even when he's not home. The next area we see is all these bookshelves of things that her mother has given her, and we're getting closer in with the darkness. And in Act 1, again, if we clicked on the bedside tables of Emily's room, she notes that some of her stuff is going missing, and some of her stuff is packed into boxes that she wasn't supposed to know about for some reason. So her things are going missing and are in boxes that she's not supposed to see, and are showing up in this treehouse. And this is hinting that her dad always meant to bring her here, and whether he was gonna just lock her in here for life and like have her kept to himself forever, I don't know if he intended or always planned to kill her, but I believe the divorce led him to that because he knew he was gonna lose control of his daughter due to his wife filing for full custody. So we see that he's been moving all of his stuff over here. We see a replica of her globe. She says it looks older. So this is going to give us a key to the final area of the treehouse. And that is a replica of her bedroom that he created to put her in and lock her in. You can note that this lock is outside the door. He was going to keep her here forever. And when we interact with the bed, Emily says, all this time, I just wanted to disappear into this bed. Now I'm home and ready to close my eyes. So this whole adventure, Emily has been feeling drained. She just wanted to fall in bed. And now she's realizing her dad made a replica of her bedroom in this treehouse. And he always meant to keep her here forever. And now he has achieved that with killing her here. And this is the end of the game. That is the end of the game. So that was a lot of information. A lot just happened. And it might be a lot to consume, I'm going to go over everything that happened really quickly with you so we get a final conclusion of what this game actually was. So what was the story of The Almost Gone? This story was about a girl named Emily, whose father seemed to have dark urges since he was a young boy. Emily at first thinks her relationship with her father is great. With her mother, it is very distant. However, as we learn more, her father was obsessive with Emily and tried to get her closer to him while straining the relationship between his daughter, and her mother. Her father was so obsessive, in fact, he tried to force Emily into things he enjoyed, like astronomy and architecture, while also possibly spying on her from a secret room in their home. When he was a young boy, Emily's father would torture small animals and have fits of anger. His parents tried to get help for him with no luck. Ultimately, they resulted in locking him in the basement for long periods of time, feeding him frozen meals they kept in their fridge. When he grew up and was tasked with taking care of his dying father, he decided to return the favor of all those years trapped in the basement. He destroyed the chairlift that allowed his father to move around, ultimately locking him in his apartment until the day he died. It's clear that his father had always wanted to help his son and was even trying to build a mental hospital to get him the help he needed. When Emily's parents first met, it seemed like their marriage was a happy one, but slowly her father was losing control of his urges. He eventually killed their dog. When Emily's mother became pregnant, she got worried for her future child, and she became anxious and depressed and ended up on a medication to help remedy it. As she was growing older, Emily's mother was seeing that her husband wanted to control Emily, turning her against her mother. Her mother's depression became worse, and she started abusing alcohol to try to cope with what was going on around her. One day, Emily's father realized an architect had moved in across the street and was going to be building new houses in the neighborhood. As a failing architect, a man with dark urges and control issues, this enraged him. He eventually took his rage out on a neighborhood boy, killing him at the site of the new build, stopping its production completely. Not wanting to be caught, Emily's father framed the boy's friend by spray painting part of the building's walls. The friend was eventually arrested for the death of the boy and sent to prison, which upon his eventual release, he ended his own life out of grief for what happened. An officer in town seemed to continue investigating what had happened. However, Emily's dad became fearful that he'd be caught. Using gasoline that was kept in the basement of his parents' old apartment building, he set the cop's car on fire, resulting in the officer's death. As things grew worse in Emily's home and her father became more and more insistent on making the treehouse, he eventually finished building it and had started to use it to spy on his daughter even more. He used a telescope to see through her bedroom window. He eventually started moving more and more of her stuff into the treehouse, and Emily couldn't figure out why some of her belongings from her bedside tables were going missing. Emily's mother could see the escalation in her husband and decided she needed to file for divorce and full custody to get Emily away from her father. After finding this out, Emily's dad became desperate and took Emily out camping one last time. He revealed the treehouse to Emily. Again, needing to always be in control of everything, Emily's father ended up killing his daughter in the treehouse so she can never be taken from him. After murdering his daughter, he heads back home and is met with a distraught wife, wondering where her child is. Not wanting to face consequences and to have the final control over the situation, Emily's father heads upstairs to the bathroom and ends his own life. When the police show up, Emily's mother has to file a police report, and the scene is shown on the news. Emily's mother ends up spending the next year in the same mental hospital that Emily's grandfather had built for her dad. Torn apart by the loss of her daughter and knowing she couldn't protect her from her father, she spends the last days of her life in grief. She covers her room in the drawings Emily had made right before she died so she can always feel close to her. After a year of being in the hospital, Emily's mother passes away. And that is the story of The Almost Gone, and it is sad. It is such a sad story. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. It took me so long to figure out the story. And there were so many hidden things in this game that added to it, and it was insane. I love your narration. Thank you so much, Rogue. That means a lot to me. I love how you put that together. Thank you. Like I said at the beginning of this, I'm in discussion boards about this game. I've seen YouTube videos of this game, and it seems like the storyline of this game has never really been constructed into just like one video, and everyone seems to not like understand what's going on. Like the discussion board I said on Steam, people keep asking why Act 2 is even part of this game, and Act 2 is actually really detrimental to the storyline of her father once you put it all together. And again, the wardrobe in Act 1, people are like, what is the point of this? It's locked, we can't use it, we're moving on. But when you actually look at it, it reveals a really sick and twisted secret that's going on in the family. So I am so happy that I was able to do this for you guys, and I hope to be able to do it for more games because it was really fun. I really enjoy these short games with very vague stories, and just putting them together for y'all to figure it out together. So hopefully we'll be doing more of that in the future. It's sad and tragic, and you put it together in a way that shows how every person and thing in it is important. Paying attention to details. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. Like I said, I spent hours putting this together. I spent all Monday and Tuesday of last week putting this together for you guys to get this story straight, because I feel like it's important. It's a game that's been out for 4 years, and I haven't seen anyone put it together yet, and I just wanted to do that because it's a great game. They did an awesome job with all of the hidden information in it. And I just wanted to share it. And so next week, I haven't really decided what game we're going to be playing yet. I have a few in mind, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a game where I need to construct an analysis at the end of it yet. But I do hope to do that in the future. I want to continue doing these short, vague games for you guys, and then just talking about what the game's meaning is at the end of it, or the next week after. But yeah, so I really appreciate all of you guys being here. I was trying really hard. What time is it? Kyle's outside. He texted me. He was like, I can wait out here until you're done. So I think he's scared to come in. So I am going to end the stream. I tried to keep it going so you guys could see Kyle. I don't think he wants to be seen. So I am going to end it here. I will let you guys know on my Instagram what we will be playing next week. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.